Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and it's full review time on this tiny little knife. This is the brand new Protech Runt 5. Apparently there have been 4 iterations of the Runt before this one, and this is the 5th, and it is epic. So, the one that I have here, if you caught my unboxing / first impressions, you'll already be aware that I showed the aluminum bronze one, which is rad. Really, really cool. We'll talk some more about that one, but that one I was just borrowing for the day to show with this one from my buddy at Protech. This one's mine. I got this one, bought it from Protech, was lucky to get one a little bit early. This is one of the ones they used for their photos, and I'm stoked that I got to buy this because A, I really, really like the knife. B, this version is one of the ones that's going to be available at Blade Show, and I assume is going to sell out there probably rather quickly. And I am not making it to Blade Show this year, which is unfortunate. I wish that I was, but I'm not. So I want to talk about this knife. Let me start by saying this, however. If you did not watch my first impressions and you have any questions about pricing or the release of this knife that you want answered, before you hop down in the comments and start asking a bunch of specific questions that I'm not going to answer in this video, watch that video, because in that video I had a sheet of paper that my buddy at Protech made for me with all the information about it. So talking about how these, the aluminum bronze ones with these hand ground blades, are going to be launched at Blade Show. The other ones, the normal production ones, are going to be launched later in the summer. I talked specific pricing figures for each of the versions, talked about all of that. So if you want answers to those questions, go watch that video. This is going to be about my experience with this knife, how it's been carrying it, using it, and what I've found from having it in my pocket for the last week and a half. So if you want to know all of that stuff, go watch that other video. And don't get mad at me for not going over it in this one. This isn't where I'm going to go over it because I already have. All right, so this version is the Wharncliffe blade. There's going to be 2 blade options. There's going to be the Wharncliffe and the reverse Tanto. This one is the hand ground Mike Erie hand grind kind of special semi-custom version of the knife. It also has this fancy button, which I believe is mother of pearl. And this one is the black aluminum with the texture. You can see there's kind of like dimpling all over this thing. This is the textured version. So there's going to be an aluminum version like this with these hand ground blades, also at Blade Show, that will not have the dimpling, and then there will be this one. For each one, there will be the 2 blade shapes. Then there's going to be an entirely different handle material, which is the aluminum bronze. Aluminum bronze, I've come to find out from talking to my buddy even more about it, it has hardly any aluminum in it. The aluminum that's put into it is less to reduce the weight, and it's, in fact, I'm pretty sure it still just weighs the same as normal bronze. It's still a very heavy material, but the purpose of it is more so that it patinas in a different way. It patinas more evenly, and it just has a slightly different property to it. So the oils in your hands are going to have a different effect on it, and from what I understand, it doesn't go like, it doesn't reach a greenish hue like just regular pure bronze will a lot of the time. So it has different properties. I think it looks really, really cool. The one that I had for a little bit just to compare, I thought was sweet. For me personally though, the more that I held them both, the more I appreciated the aluminum one because it is so lightweight. And this is a tiny little secondary knife. For me, secondaries should be pretty lightweight. That makes a difference to me. I've carried this back left pocket like 10 times now. I've carried it in the coin pocket of some jeans, I think twice, but mostly it's been back left pocket, and it's stupid comfortable there. So part of that is the lightweight nature of it. If you're someone who doesn't care about weight of your little knife, the bronze one I think looks cooler. Objectively, I think that handle material looks awesome. But for me, I wouldn't pick the heavy material just because I prefer the lightweight, even though it, in my opinion, looks cooler. It's still not a stupid heavy knife when it's in that material because it is so small. It's just, having handled them both, the contrast is incredibly stark. Like every time that I handled that one with this set down for a few minutes and then picked this one up, this one up, I felt like I was going to toss it into the air because it's just so much lighter. Like, they're really night and day in terms of the felt weight. But some people like a hefty little knife that feels, I don't know, like there's more quality there because it weighs more. I get that. And again, I think it looks nicer. So if I were picking for me, and this wasn't just the one that they had available, which is kind of why I have this one, but now that I have held both and know both, I would still pick the aluminum for me just because for my uses it makes more sense. All right, so all of the hand ground Mike Erie ones, again, I think are going to Blade Show from what I understand, and they are more expensive than the full production ones are going to be. The regular production ones are going to be 20 CV. These hand ground ones are 154 CM. So I may end up getting a 20 CV one to have as kind of like a beater user secondary knife, because this one's really pretty, although I have used it quite a bit, and we'll talk about that as well. Yeah, so this one's 154 CM. It's got the aluminum handle scales, and of course the hand ground blade. So let's talk my typical kind of talking points on this knife. Ergos, carry, cutting, action, all that stuff. Let's start with action, which I don't usually do, but because it's a Protech, I feel like let's just get that out of the way. This is a Protech Auto. It is a push button, out the side auto, and it's snappy. If you've handled a Protech, you know what their actions are like. There can be a little variance from model to model. I feel like depending on size and blade weight and all that, sometimes they may use a slightly different like spring strength, different strength spring. This one feels every bit as snappy as any other Protech I've ever handled. It's a tiny, lightweight little blade, so I mean it fires out like lightning. It's great. And of course, closing it is going to be like any other Protech or out the side auto. To do it with one hand can be a little bit of you got to work it and kind of figure that out, because if at any point you're closing it and you let go, it's right back to open. That spring is super strong. A lot of the time that I close it, it's just a two-handed close. That's out the side autos are super fun to open, not that fun to close, in my opinion. That's the way it's going to be here. Super fun to deploy. Closing it is just, it's closing it out the side auto. All right, let's talk ergos next. Ergos on a tiny knife are an interesting thing, because this is a really small knife. This is a California legal auto, which is not that common in the world of autos. That means it has, I think, a sub 2-inch blade. That's tiny, right? And when you're talking about knives with blades this small, oftentimes they're paired with a really small handle. This is one of those cases. This knife is tiny. But a lot of people make tiny knives and they feel, I don't know, it's difficult to nail ergos on a tiny knife, because if you make it too neutral, then it feels like you have no traction on an already really small knife with not much to hold on to, and then it's like, oh, I don't really feel comfortable using this thing. Other times people go too far and they put like super aggressive jimping, or they just make it really boxy or whatever it may be, and I don't know, it's like there's a lot of ways to mess up on a tiny knife that I find are less forgivable because it's tiny. Like, ergos are so much more difficult here. And this is one of my favorite ergonomic tiny knives that I've experienced so far. I'd say the other one that's up there with this is my Giant Mouse Ace Riv. I really, really like the ergos on that little guy. But this one, especially for not having a forward choil, is really, really comfortable. You've just got a little bit of a groove right here. The rest of the handle is neutral. This one, like I said, is the textured one, so I do get a little bit of extra kind of grip on it because of that texture, but it's not rough, it's not aggressive. You've got another texture patch back here that feels really, really good if my thumb lands on it, although most of the time, honestly, I'm putting my thumb all the way up here. That's comfortable as well. So it's neutral enough that even though my pinky isn't even landing on this at all, it still feels thick enough and like simple enough while having just enough of a groove. I don't know, it all comes together. I'm not feeling like this is going to slip out of my hand. All of the cutting I've done with it, it's been very comfortable. It just works, and it works well. So I like the ergos. It's good in a draw grip. It's good saber grip, hammer grip, reverse grip. shockingly, is kind of okay. It would do better with a little bit more length up here. I think I'd feel more confident with it, but it is comfortable there. Reverse grip draw cut, comfortable enough. So I think the neutrality of this handle, while having just the right touches of a little bit of texture, a little bit of a groove, it all comes together to work quite well on it. Let's talk carry. Carry is the strongest part of this knife, in my opinion. It is tiny, it is lightweight, and it has my favorite pocket clip in the game on it. This is Protech's loop over style deep carry clip that is set down into the aluminum handle scale and then has flush fit screws that sit down countersunk into the clip itself. So it's all super smooth and perfect under there. The clip has great retention. I have no problem getting it in and out of any pocket that I have. It carries deep. I love it. This is excellent. And on such a tiny, already comfortable little knife that doesn't even have a flipper tab sticking out anywhere, no sharp edges or angles, it is supremely comfortable to put in any pocket that I've put it in. Back left pocket, I oftentimes forget that it's there. It's just, even in like a coin pocket, a fifth pocket on my pants, it's super comfortable there. It's great. So carry is probably honestly the strongest point of a knife this tiny. It's just tiny and light, and it carries well. So what else do we need to talk about? Cutting performance on this guy. So I have done an actual fair bit of cutting with this. At first, I was hesitant to do it because it's a mirror polished blade, right? And so I haven't done anything crazy with it, but I've done a lot of opening packages and packaging, and I have processed some cardboard with it. So I've cut the tape to get into the box quite a bit. A lot of boxes have been opened by this knife so far. Even my wife has used it a few times because it's not intimidating for her, which is a nice thing. Maybe I'll get her to actually carry a knife with this. Probably not, but maybe. So a lot of opening the box itself, and then quite a bit of opening like my daughter's toys and things, which sometimes have little plastic zip ties, and not real zip ties, but like little tie downs and little rubber bands and stuff internally that holds toys into packaging. I have opened, I think, 2 boxes where I had to cut through some of the plastic, like clamshell, to get the thing out. And then I've processed some cardboard for the dumpster with it. So I've cut some actual lengths of cardboard. This grind is phenomenal. It's nice and thin behind the edge. In terms of its geometry, it's excellent. I really, really like the geometry of these grinds that Mike Erie did for them. Obviously, the finishing is not going to stand up super well to hard use, right? It's going to get scratched because it's mirror polished. So that's a thing. The production ones, when they do them in 20 CV, will not be mirror polished. And I think those are going to be phenomenal little secondaries for people who really want to put their secondary through a lot of work. Or even just somebody who carries a really small knife and uses it every day. Like, that'll become really, really good. Plus 20 CV, I would say, is the superior steel to 154 CM. I think the data would support me on that. But this is gorgeous. It looks really cool. There's something about a mirror polished blade that just feels fancy and cool and fancy. It feels expensive. It feels nice. It's opulent. I don't know. I like it a lot. But it's also like, I rarely keep them around because I'm afraid to use them. This one I've just kind of made myself start using it. And I'm really impressed that, honestly, after wiping it down, usually just with like microfiber back tanks, I can get it to look nice and shiny again. I haven't done anything crazy with it, but I was worried before I even like put it through cardboard or thin plastic and stuff that I would scratch the crap out of this blade, and it just hasn't happened yet. It still looks really, really good. So I don't know. I'm sure it'll happen eventually. I'll put a scratch in it, and then I'll just have to deal with it, and I'll cry and then get over it. But for now, it's still looking incredible. Yeah, so I mean, ergos are very good. Carry is incredible. Action, if you like out the side autos, this is as good as they come. It's really, really good. Protech nails it on that. And then cutting, it's done very, very well. Yeah, I don't know much else that I need to say about this knife other than I think it's sweet. I guess one thing I should talk about is this is a California legal auto, right? And if you know me and my preferences in knives, I'm not generally buying knives based on what's legal in California. I live in California, but you can own like OTFs and stuff that aren't tiny in California. You're just not supposed to carry them, right? So I've owned quite a few OTFs and out the side autos that are bigger than the California legal limit. But for a lot of people, it is a major concern. They don't want to buy something that they're not going to carry, or they don't want to carry something that they know they're not supposed to, or whatever. You decide for yourself how you feel about that. It's probably pretty clear how I do. I think it's absurd that those are even rules, and yeah. But there is a market for little autos. The one that immediately comes to mind when I think California legal auto is the Kershaw. I don't know which number it is, but there's the launch. Maybe it's the 7 or something, but it's a little California legal Kershaw launch auto, right? And that knife is very popular, I would argue, because it is a blade length that you're allowed to carry in places where you otherwise couldn't carry an auto. And so it's a fun way to have an auto in your pocket. For most people, it's probably a secondary or a little backup blade or whatever. Some people, they can carry a knife like this and be totally confident in it and feel fine. This isn't a knife I would carry as a primary, but what I'm trying to get at is I think this is the most exciting thing to happen to California legal autos, to that like segment of the automatic knife world in quite a while. At least for me it is, because I normally don't even really have interest in those knives. I find that it's like, what's the point? It's tiny, it's a little toy knife, I don't need it. But this is awesome. I really genuinely like it. And I've handled the Kershaw one. It's fine. I've never felt a need to own one. The Microtech UTX 70, they make one with an extra short blade that's California legal. I don't like the UTX 70 anyways. It feels way too toy-like. I have one here that I'm going to be selling to a buddy soon. But I don't like that knife at all. This feels like a proper knife. It feels like a knife that was designed to be small and is really good at being small. And it is fun that it's an auto. That does make it extra exciting. And Protech just crushes it on their builds. Protech is, I predict that within the next few years, they will continue to grow, especially as they continue to make out the side manual button lock folders. Knives like the Malibu and the Mordax, my goodness, they're phenomenal. And Protech is a US company doing everything here, and they're doing it incredibly well. They're starting to use even better materials over time. They're like crushing it, in my opinion. And this is a great representation of what they can do, because this knife is just excellent. It's truly really, really good. So I guess I'm going to leave it there. My full review of the Runt 5 is that I really, really like it. I find it super fun. I find it incredibly enjoyable to carry. I think it looks great, and it's just a cool little knife. And there's not enough tiny knives that are actually good knives. Like, it's a segment that I don't know. I wish more people could nail it like this on a knife this small and have it fit my hand well and have it actually cut things well and have it be fun still. Like, I don't know. They've nailed it here. So thanks for checking it out, guys. Again, if you want deeper details on the release of this knife and pricing and all of that, watch the first impressions video, because that's where all of that is. And then if you still have questions about it, maybe message me, or just check out Protech or message them about it. You know, like they've got answers too. Anyway, thanks guys. We'll see you on the next one.